About the new drugs that claim to be an improvement, like DDI and DDC?
DDI, DDC is exactly like AZT. It's just another one of those chain terminators. There are 4 in theory that you can design, and they are just analogs of the 4 nucleotides of DNA.
The newest form of treatment produced by the AIDS industry are the protease inhibitor drugs, designed to prevent the virus from detaching itself from a cell and going on to reproduce. In the true fashion of everything done in the war on AIDS, the benefits of these drugs are often announced at a press conference without outside critique or long-term review. The most recent one was approved by the FDA in a record 42 days. All this to fight a virus that is dormant and not reproducing.
I have never seen a study that showed any clinical benefits whatsoever. I'm saying whatsoever of this protease inhibitors.
Though the news media has bolstered reports of these new miracle drugs with high acclaim, valid clinical benefits are scarce and disappointing. In one long-term study, 400 AIDS patients taking protease inhibitors showed no improvement over those not on the treatment. Patients who claim to be having a miraculous recovery could actually be experiencing a psychologically induced placebo effect, and in other cases, improved health could be due to cutbacks in dosages of much more toxic drugs like AZT. Many patients experience short-term recoveries followed by a swift crash that often results in death. Dr. David Rasnick has studied protease inhibitors for 20 years. He says, quote, "The HIV protease inhibitors are extremely effective at preventing the production of infectious virus in vitro." Rasnick says that because the protease inhibitors are so effective at stopping HIV, only a small amount would be needed to stop a real viral disease. But AIDS patients are prescribed huge dosages over long periods of time on regimented schedules in an attempt to completely eliminate any trace of HIV from their system. Over time, side effects of the protease inhibitors have caused problems with blood clotting, liver function, digestion, and even kidney stones. So why aren't AIDS patients getting any better? The success of the protease inhibitors spells another failure for the HIV hypothesis. We have finally found a way to stop the virus, and it's having no effect on stopping AIDS. How do the drug companies explain this dilemma? With the same excuse used for AZT, that HIV is mutated to resist the treatment. But Rasnick says this is doubtful. Quote, "The well-publicized worry that HIV protease might mutate to inhibitor-resistant forms is not supported by the clinical data. Indeed, there are very good theoretical reasons, confirmed by experiments, that the inhibitor-resistant mutants of HIV protease do not lead to viable virus. This means that HIV is not escaping through mutation. So the HIV proponents who ignored fundamental science and common sense now face their biggest challenge yet, finding a way to explain why stopping HIV does not stop AIDS."
Until now, we're just trying to sell more drugs to people who are dying anyway, or helping them dying by these drugs.
Tests are now being conducted on drug mixtures called cocktails, where DNA chain terminators like AZT are mixed with protease inhibitors and other strong drugs. These tests continually end prematurely, and the results are questionable. But the real question is, how fast will the market for these drugs evaporate if it's proven that HIV does not cause AIDS? It's obvious that the AIDS industry relies on the HIV hypothesis, but that might also work both ways, as one hand washes the other. HIV needs AZT to accomplish what statistics prove the virus can't do, that is, cause AIDS. How many AIDS patients have died because of treatment with AZT, and has AZT skewed statistics in favor of the HIV hypothesis?
They have caused AIDS with AZT more than with HIV, and have thus helped the myth that HIV is responsible for it.
Whether real or only perceived as real, the fear of plague has been a useful tool in the hands of political opportunists down through history, and so it has been with HIV. Critics say what is called AIDS education is in reality a clever propaganda campaign designed to exploit the good intentions of the uninformed. Fear, which is based on several myths about HIV and AIDS, is what keeps the AIDS machine fed and keeps the money and support rolling in for government programs. The chief myth, of course, is that HIV causes AIDS and that virtually everyone infected with it will die. There has never been an infectious epidemic that is even close to being 100% fatal. Even the Black Death of Europe killed only 1/3 of the population, leaving the other 2/3 to repopulate the continent. According to figures from the World Health Organization, HIV cannot be proven to cause AIDS over 9 times out of 10. Another myth concerns the accuracy of the HIV antibody blood test. Thousands of false positives occur due to malaria, flu, parasitic infections, and hormone changes during pregnancy. Studies now show that we've put too much at stake based on a test that can be dangerously flawed. Christine Johnson has documented the reliability of the HIV blood test, and the inaccuracy of this test is frightening. In people who are not in the AIDS risk groups and who are not sick with an AIDS disease, the HIV antibody blood test can be wrong over 71% of the time. But the most socially terrorizing myth is that AIDS is spread sexually.
HIV is spread by sharing needles and through sex with an infected person.
Even if there is one encounter, one sexual encounter.
Studies done at Harvard show that HIV is almost non-existent in sperm. 25 men with AIDS contributed about 1 million sperm cells each. Tests using highly sensitive detection methods could only find the footprint of one dormant HIV virus. The fact is, HIV is almost never spread sexually. CDC reports of heterosexual transmission ignore the possibility that these adults got HIV years ago from their mothers. This group also has a very high rate of false positives. But even HIV proponents admit its chances of being transmitted heterosexually are about 1 out of 1,000 encounters. The lovers and sexual partners of Magic Johnson, Arthur Ashe, Rock Hudson, and Liberace are all HIV negative, yet we're continually told that safe sex will stop AIDS.
We've had a problem with young people not knowing about protecting themselves.
The original projections of AIDS ravishing the nation as a sexually transmitted disease have fallen far short because they assumed that prostitutes would become infected and then pass HIV on to their clients, who would then spread the virus throughout the entire population. But studies reveal that prostitutes almost never get HIV infections unless they also use drugs. Even in foreign countries where condoms are rarely used and prostitutes have over 100 sexual partners a week, HIV infection is virtually non-existent. Programs in schools and AIDS awareness centers that promote safe sex may be effective in preventing pregnancy and venereal diseases, but they've had no measurable effect in stopping AIDS. Still, the concept of a killer sex virus has proved to be the most effective tool in spreading the HIV/AIDS propaganda and raising public funding. Everyone from Sunday school teachers to gay AIDS activists have dramatized the threat that AIDS can strike anyone through sex. Why are they intentionally terrorizing the population? In a very revealing examination of the government's AIDS program, the Wall Street Journal reported that the CDC knew way back in 1987 that HIV was not spreading sexually into the whole population, yet they continued to exaggerate the risk. CDC official Dr. Walter Dowdle went as far as to say, quote, "As long as this was seen as a gay disease, or even worse, a disease of drug abusers, that pushed the disease way down the ladder." The public would never support a program to help a few people suffering from the effects of their recreational drug use. So AIDS had to become a disease everyone could get. Simply raise billions of dollars. It was an easy ploy to sell and politically correct with gay activists.
And then we had a huge lobby of gay men who were politically vocal and demanded some action and some solution. They didn't want a lifestyle hypothesis, which was essentially the prevailing hypothesis in the early 80s as a cause of AIDS. That this was a consequence of their lifestyle, and lifestyle in turn was a euphemism for the enormous use of recreational drugs. Nitrite inhalants, amphetamines, cocaine, and that's going on to this date. Although